example. In the previous example, I showed how to create just a plain object. In this example, we're going to do the same thing, except it's for an object that has a type associated with it. So right-click again where we want the object. Select New Object Structure. We say Object, and say we want to create an Akamai configuration. And since it has a type associated with it, we choose the type that we want. There's a way to look up types in a type repository. So we're going to choose the Akamai configuration type, and you say create. And that'll create the resulting object and associate the schema with it. Right click on that. Say explore object fully. Do that. And now we'll open up an object. See what it actually looks like. It's a bit sluggish, so it's running on the powered machine. So behind the scenes, what's happening is that there is a schema associated with this object, and it's specified here. It's loading into memory, and once it completes loading, this would turn to green, this arrow up here, which will reveal the properties associated with this object. So this is green now, we click that. So that adds some rules. These are Akamai specific things, and that'll create the rules object for us. If you're familiar with an Akamai configuration, it's basically top level rule. It's usually what's called default rule. So again, it's going to create that rules object, and when it's done, it should update the view here to show it. Now we can open this rules object, which itself would have its own schema associated with it. And once it loads, it'll be just like the first one, where it'll be the drop up to reveal the properties available for this object. And you can choose from those properties to configure the object. So this is struggling a bit here. All right, that opens the rules object. Again, in a minute, it'll show the options here. You click on it, and it reveals a bunch of things that, again, if you're familiar with Akamai configuration, you should be familiar with. So let's choose to create some children associated with the default rule. That will create basically an array, and this is an indication that it's an array, and it'll add it to the tree. We open up this children. There's nothing really to add specific to this children except to add sub elements to it. So we're going to say here, and it'll create the first child. So it'll update here once that gets created. Now we can open this child, which is a child rule, and it'll have a bunch of things. Criteria usually would be part of it, right? So let's choose a criteria that we want, and that'll create a criteria object or the criteria array, which again, just like with the child or the children, you can usually have more than one criteria. So it's an array structure. We open that up, and once it reveals this green button, we're going to go create a child of it. Now with criteria, you have a bunch of different criteria. So as you can see here in this list, it does show a bunch of different objects. We are working on adding a way to quickly tell what type of object it is, but we'll just choose one randomly, and that'll create a criteria for us. Once the criteria object actually gets created, when you open it up, you'll be able to tell what it is that we selected, what type of operation or criteria we're planning to apply. Close that up and open the new criteria object that we just created. So once you've created one object, you get familiar with the whole process. You create an object, it exposes the additional properties associated with this object. So for criteria, you'll see soon it has things like match operators, their values. So here you have, let's choose a name. When you select a name, if there is a set of values associated with the name, you can actually reveal it here. So here it says request type criteria. So you can click on this to reveal that additional. So we'll add that as a name of a criteria, which means it's going to match on the request type. And let's add the options, which are the ways that you specify what type of matching you want it to do. So we'll add that objects property. And once it gets added, we can open that up. A little sluggish, but it's running on a fairly underpowered machine, unfortunately. So we're going to open this up. Again, every object has its own schema associated with it. It's that solvent object schema property that you saw it, this one. So again, when this loads behind the scenes, it loads up the schema associated with this object. And once that's done, it'll reveal it here. There is caching that happens, so ordinarily it should be faster than it's doing right now. I'll be looking into this, but yeah, we see the options. There's a match operator. It even fills in the default here as is. But if I click here, it reveals some other options. So we could say if not, click go, and it adds it there. And then of course the actual values that you want the match with. Again, here in this case, the value is an enum, so it actually adds the default. And you can choose what you want to say. ESI fragment is the type of thing that we want to match on. So it'll do that. So that gives you a basic idea of how you create configurations. In this case, it's an Akamai configuration. You can create any config structure that you want in here. Just like with the ordinary object, when you want to test it, you need to uncheck this and then right click on this, choose open in browser, and it should reveal the actual JSON result to you. So if you click that, allow the pop-up from here. For some reason that did not go through. I'm doing it on the wrong object. It should be on this one. So I told you our machine is underpowered. It's not run out of memory. Not good for a demo, but you get the idea.